you get into this particular passage, which is verses 40 through 56 in chapter 8 of Luke, and you do get this question that just jumps out, and it really, at the heart of it, represents Jesus's compassion, represents his sovereignty, his power, and the fact that he has a purpose that we could never try to anticipate.
Yeah.
Because the purpose of the passage, when you first get into verse 40, is like, oh, he's got to get to Jairus' house ASAP.
Because his daughter is dying.
Yeah.
And he has to catch her before she's dead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the urgency of the passage. So it's like, get there as fast as you can, get there as fast as you can. And then you see Jesus slow things down.
Yeah. He's not going to rush anything.
Yeah.
Which is sort of, if you're going to pick out a characteristic of God, just know that his timeline and your timeline are different.
Totally. Jesus often takes the long way when we want to take a shortcut.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Because there's relationship at stake.
There is.
There's like something else at stake.
Right. And that is one thing that really jumped out to me, where Jairus comes and he's asking Jesus urgently to come help him because of his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And then you read Jesus's words to this woman, and he says, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace."
That's amazing.
And so
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it jumped out to me because I just thought, Jesus has a daughter in the crowd. That's why he wants to go through all of this. And he's doing it for Jairus' benefit too. You read after that. But it sure in the moment did not feel like anything good to Jairus.
Yeah. He has a timer going off in his head saying, she's going to die.
Yeah.
She's dead.
Yeah.
Because you
Don't
went
you
through
care?
that crowd. So one of the key words I think that has struck me in the text is this word immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of explain why is that such an important word? It's actually more important in the Gospel of Mark, right? That word, but like why that word?
I think immediately just again speaks to the urgency of everything that's unfolding here, where Jairus is very urgent in terms of this need that he has, and so it's also built into the passage in other ways without using the actual word immediately. But you see, like, I'm looking at verse 42 here, kind of in the middle of it. It's the start of the next paragraph, the second paragraph in this part, but it says, as Jesus went, the people pressed around him. So it's like he's going, and then there is that word immediately in verse 44. He touched the fringe of her garment, of his garment, and immediately her problem is solved. But then verse 49, while he was still speaking, someone came from the ruler's house and said, your daughter is dead. And so you see the fact that, like, Jesus seems to be interrupted over and over. Like, he's interrupted by Jairus from whatever agenda we would think he might have as soon as he gets out of the boat. He's like interrupted from whatever plan he had for the day by Jairus, and then gets interrupted by this woman on the way to Jairus' house. And then while he's talking to the woman, gets interrupted again by this messenger from Jairus' house saying, oh, it's too late. Don't bother the teacher anymore.
Yeah.
And so in one sense, you just see that things are like overlapping here. These scenes are overlapping, and it does seem like Jesus is just dealing with these constant interruptions that maybe are making it seem like he is just kind of a victim of the moment, where the moment it's too big and it's just kind of shifting him around wherever he doesn't want to go, like the crowd is shifting him around wherever he doesn't want to go. But then, of course, we realize at the end, like, oh no, this is all 100% in his control.
Right.
Because it turns out exactly the way he wants it to. But immediately also speaks of just his power, because immediately she's healed.
Yeah.
He touches Jairus' daughter, and at once she gets right up.
Yeah.
It just speaks to the power of God.
I love that there's this phrase in here, do not trouble the teacher anymore.
Yeah.
Because when we bring our problems to Jesus, they're not troubling him.
Not at all. Not at all.
You know, it's like the person you meet with and say, I'm so thankful for your time. I can't believe I took too much of your time. And you're like, no, I gave you my time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, reframe that.
Yeah.
I give freely my time to you.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus is like, do not trouble the teacher. And it's actually capitalized in the English Bible.
Yeah. Yeah, it does raise the question, though, what is in this person's mind about who Jesus is?
Right.
Yeah. Does teacher really capture the fullness of who Jesus is? And, makes us wonder what expectations they had of Jesus' identity and power and everything. And you see that throughout the passage, too, where Jairus seems to be operating under the assumption that there's a possibility that things could turn out okay if only they can get to his house before his daughter dies. And you see that assumption just kind of is played out throughout the passage, but Jesus wants to actually show that assumption is not accurate. It's not a good assumption.
Yeah, it's not a good assumption. The other part is 51, he didn't allow anyone to enter except Peter, John, and James, and the father and the mother.
What do you make of that, Jay?
Yeah, what do you make of that? You preach the text. Yeah. Like that's an astounding sort of sentence.
Oh, it is. Yeah. So the comparison here is Jairus goes in a very public way as a very public official to Jesus, asking for help in front of the whole crowd. Mm-hmm. And he, at the end, receives kind of a private, limited miracle, and not in terms of the nature of the miracle, but in terms of just the crowd.
Right.
Jesus makes it more private. The woman comes in a very private way, not wanting to be discovered,
right,
and has a very public miracle.
Oh, that's really
so it's
distinctive.
Like Jesus turns the tables on these things. And the best thought that I've heard about why Jesus might do this is because he just understands the hearts of people, and he knows that it's really common for people to see his power on display and just completely be enamored, swept away by his power and miss the purpose behind his power.
Right.
And so he will at times limit the access to those displays of his power because he knows what's in the heart of people.
Yeah.
And also, faith is very much at the forefront of this passage too. And he seems to be shooing away the people who display a lack of faith, and instead welcoming in the people who have a faith to see what he's about to do.
That's interesting because it's not explicit in the text of like Jairus has faith, is it?
No. Well, it's a really big question because Jairus displays faith throughout it to be able to go up to Jesus.
Okay.
The woman displays faith to go up to Jesus too. Yeah. Now, is their faith 100% what it could be or what it should be? Maybe not.
Right.
They have their doubts, but I think it's hopefully a real encouragement for us to think like, man, my faith feels kind of shaky right now, actually. But you know what? Jesus can actually work with that.
Right.
That's fine. And Jesus's miracles too are sometimes to initialize a faith, to be able to draw a faith out of somebody, sometimes to more solidify a faith that's already there, strengthen it. So it's hard to predict what exactly the relationship between faith and miracles is all the time. There is other part in the Gospels where Jesus goes to his own hometown of Nazareth.
And they lack faith.
And they laugh at him. And it says that he could not perform many miracles there because of their lack of faith.
Yeah.
So at times it does seem like the people's lack of faith really does impact what Jesus chooses to do or not do.
And sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's typical Jesus fashion.
Yeah. Well, even that case right before this with the demoniac, obviously the demoniac's not coming up and displaying a faith in Jesus.
Right.
But Jesus rescues him. So he's taking a situation like that where there's no faith present, but he is definitely creating a situation for this man to have faith.